Appreciate this opportunity to make this presentation and about PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and from coal tar sealers, and regarding emerging concerns and regulations, kind of an update. The reason why that's an update, okay, trying to forward my screen, there we go. Gosh, my screen's all messed up. Anyway, okay, let's go, keep going. So Barbara Mahler presented to this conference. Dr. Barbara Mahler, the USGS, presented to this conference in 2017. And the title was that, as you see there, Old Contaminants with Emerging Concerns. She went on to describe, coal tar has been around for and known as a contaminant for more than 200 years. And but yet its use as a pavement product and its contamination potential is relatively recent. And I'm going to update you from last few years. The reason why I'm doing it, and Dr. Mahler, this is Dr. Mahler in the center, and then her husband, Dr. Peter Van Meter on the right, and Congressman Lloyd Doggett, US Congressman. About 1 year ago, they were in a tragic car accident. Peter lost his life. Dr. Mahler had severe brain injury and may never work again. And so prayers and best wishes for her, but she continues to recover. So I'm trying, she's an excellent presenter, so I'm intimidated to even attempt to fill her shoes. So I'll just run, if you're not familiar with this topic, I'll just review a little bit of what Dr. Mahler presented a few years ago. PAH is interesting when you're talking about crumb tire rubber. One of the constituents of concern is PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, because they're present. And one of the concerns when you use crumb tire rubber in athletic fields is the exposure to humans. But as you can see there's many sources. Anytime you burn a organic, you can create PAHs. Specifically, these are some of the common culprits that we think of. They all have that familiar benzene ring. And then after that, it's just an assemblage of multiple benzene rings. And as I said, we've known since the 1700s that chimney sweeps got cancer from crawling in chimneys that were burning coal. And then we know that coal tar was an early building block of organic chemistry and industrial chemistry production. You can read texts over 100 years ago about industrial effects of exposure to coal tar back then, but it's still in shampoos and it's still used in the paving industry. Unlike the USGS found, many contaminants are decreasing as we sort of move away from an industrial base in the United States, but PAHs have an upward trend. And this is what the USGS found around the country. You can see that grayness, that is a wear pattern of this seal coat, the thin black coating on a surface. And it's been noted that these can kill fish. You can have fish kills, fresh wear off of seal coat kills fish. They did this analysis, and this is, I encourage you, if you're interested in this, Dr. Mahler's presentation from 2017 is up on YouTube. Watch this. This is a great slide that it really deserves all the attention if you're interested in this. But essentially, they looked at exposure to Ceria daphnia over 111 days. And if you just had 4 hours of UV exposure, you had 100% mortality of Ceria daphnia. And that's both with 10% dilution and 100% concentration. So very toxic. So what's happened since then? We've moved beyond the 16 PAHs, I would say, in some ways. I had the privilege to work with this National Mag Lab, which is part of the Department of Energy. And Taylor Gladkey made this presentation of the findings of that research. They use this Complicated GCMS strategy that actually a four-year transfer approach. Maybe some of you work with them, but essentially you can count the molecules. It's very granular analysis. What they found was they looked at this planner limit, PAH planner limit, basically looking at how you'd maximize PAHs in any formula, because beyond 16, what they found, coal tar sealants have 2,300, if you see that in the lower right, 2,300 different chemicals. Asphalt sealers have 13 or 12,000. But you see the scatter plot, you see the coal tar hugs that planner limit line. Basically, it tells you you may not have a PAH, pure PAH, but you get byproducts that have oxygens, sulfur, or nitrogen associated with those. So those tend to be water soluble. The others are not. And so we have a combination of the two coming off seal coat. So, and then she's got a hypothesis she's working on, that you have this emulsifying agent represented by the EA, that because this is an emulsion, meaning it's like a typical butter, or isn't typical emulsion to use at home, but an emulsion needs to keep, this is taking a non-water soluble product and making it water soluble and mix, and then as it dries, it cures. Well, what happens when the emulsifying agent, when it dries, the emulsifying agent becomes the vehicle for transferring, her hypothesis of transferring photooxidation products that make it more toxic. And then we've actually moved beyond coal tar too, because we had this conversation, but now the industry started using, a couple of years ago, this stuff called ethylene cracked residue. It's not related to coal at all. It is a byproduct of making plastic from asphalt. So it's a super cooked asphalt, is the best way I can describe it. And its characteristics are very similar and super confusing because they use, about 8 different terms to describe it. And then there you look at the PAHs of these. A regular traditional asphalt-based product has 50 to 100. Coal tar, we're talking 70,000 parts per million. That's massive. And then ethylene cracked residues have about 20,000. So we would tend to classify those as coal tar light. And then Dr. Amy Witter out of Dickinson University in Pennsylvania did analysis, and she's looking at a whole different classification of byproducts, but she's finding that as a seal coat cures, it's forming new chemicals that are water soluble, that we really haven't analyzed their toxicity yet. So that's a concern that you see in the graph there, that after 19 days, some of these are still prevalent and growing. So that's the first study. Her study is actually one that incorporated the ECRs into her research, ethylene cracked residue. And the regulations have continued to evolve in beyond coal tar. And so we've got, if you look at this map, you can see, you could probably look at it better in maybe a larger screen, but the gold push pins on there are bands that have incorporated PAH values, not just coal tar. So their first ban, which was in Austin, we banned coal tar in 2005 because that's what we always thought was the problem. Well, now we have these ECR products. State of Maine, state of New York have already passed bans that would regulate that and prohibit that. And then you've got communities throughout Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Maryland that all have bans as well. State of Minnesota has a ban of coal tar alone. So anyway, the regulations, probably half the regulations now in the United States include a PAH value, not just coal tar alone. In 2021, the state of Illinois came up with they couldn't get a ban passed after several years of trying. So they said, if the state of Illinois uses this, they've got to disclose to the public why they're using it, And then if schools do the same, they've got to notify parents in the community about why they're going to use this on a school. That goes into effect next year. And so that's, we shall see how that's enforced. And so mine is a quick overview of where we are. I'm working with the EPA on developing a testing protocol. So we have similar tests to make sure we all, because drying times can affect pH values, et cetera. So that's what we've been working on as well. The future, just came out with a study just yesterday with the first ever industrial hygiene analysis of coal tar workers, and basically showed that no matter what you do, you exceed safe exposure values for workers. And surprisingly, here we are, we've known this is a problem for 17 years, but we've known coal tar is a problem for over 100. And this is the first published data showing that workers are at risk. I know plenty of workers who've gotten cancer that may be because of that, but this is the first peer-reviewed study, and that's done through the leadership was through NIOSH, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and that's so the world will continue to regulate this, I believe, and we'll see maybe in another 5 years what happens. That's my presentation. That's my contact information. And I think if there's a question for me or maybe somebody else.
We do have time for questions. If anybody has any questions for Tom. While we give folks a minute to enter questions in the chat box if they have them, I just wanted to say that Dr. Mailer was very inspiring, and her work was incredible. And the loss of her and Dr. Van Meter to the scientific community will be felt for many years, but they have left behind such a legacy in the work that they've done. If that's any consolation, their legacy is incredible. They're excellent scientists.
Right. And, I did, just as we're waiting for chats to come in, if they do, but, I went to Pete's funeral service, and sometimes you find out, a guy was an awesome researcher, but, he was a better human being than he was a researcher. And so that's, you take consolation in that, the fact that, good people do good work. And that's Dr. Mahler and Dr. Van Meter. So
yeah,
for sure.
I didn't know Dr. Van Meter, but Dr. Mahler was always so kind to me and so helpful. And so I hope that she's getting, I trust that she's getting all the support that she needs.
She is. She's in an extra care facility only about 2 miles from my house. So she's in good hands, but it is a long road, and with a traumatic brain injury.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come and update the attendees on not just the science, but also on, on how she is doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Sarah.